Okay, round two. This time, 100% more Drexen. We're back with China Talk. Hopefully, no more technical difficulties. We had some computers explode, but we got it all sorted, all figured out just for you guys. Again, I'm the LPL caster Frostgreen. You're going to be your host. With me, the panelists, it's going to be our LSPL expert Raz, bringing on the Drexen coming up. Computer back from the grave, and then of course we have Kelsey Moser, All Esports on Gamers. I didn't even mention Esports Heaven. I'll throw that one out for Drexen. I was like, who's this guy? Esports Heaven editor-in-chief? Doesn't matter. No.
Maybe
Before
everybody
we
can hear me
decided,
this time.
yeah,
See if we can
he's
show.
not muted for once in his life.
Well,
Let's talk Demacia Cup. We were talking about it before the stream decided to explode, but let's just recap really quickly. We were talking about the narrative of Demacia Cup. Very long tournament, kind of has it's only the second time. It definitely ramped up scale and ramped up production value this time around. Huge prize pool. It's kind of a high-profile tournament at this point. You had really good teams competing. TJ, LSPL, LPL teams. Of course, the finals came down to World Elite and EDG. And we talked a little bit before the stream crashed, kind of the narrative going forward, typically with these two teams, that it was like one of the most intense rivalries. It was like this forgotten love, Romeo and Juliet-esque style romance between the previous and former members of World Elite. And unfortunately now in the current context, and we've talked about this before, like World Elite has slowly over the course of a year just started changing its identity and its entity to this different style of team. Raz, I can still see you dancing. I don't have a picture, but I can still see you. And this is obviously due to the fact that they keep, dropping their all-star roster, the roster that was World Elite when they were so dominant, and picking up more Koreans. Like before, World Elite was, the Chinese team, and now they're not. So we talked a little bit about Aluka because we were covering World Elite's new roster. So Aluka, Spirit, Ninja, STYZ, and Conan. Now Conan is Conan and Ninja are the only two remaining members of the World Elite roster from the previous splits.
You really want to make a team around those guys.
If I was going to keep two guys, it was going to be them. So we talked about how Luca is from Positive Energy. He's not a good top laner by any comparison. I mean, probably bottom half of LPL.
If he was previously like a top 3 laner in spring 2013 LPL, but he just had no idea what to do with a lane advantage at all. It was
okay.
That's what I would say about him.
So now let's go to Spirit, and this is the question that I wanted to ask of Spirit, because obviously everyone knows where Spirit came from. OGN, not a champion. Samsung Blue, the jungler previously, comes over. He's here. Watching Spirit in the Demacia Cup games, was this, because this kind of finally answers the question. Like everyone's been asking, is Mata going to be as successful in LPL versus OGN? Like, can you just take these superstars from these teams and transplant them into a scene and see the same amount of success? And for the first time, we finally got like one of these players out in the open, out in the water. So here's the question: did he pass the test? Is Spirit the same Spirit that we saw in OGN on World Elite?
I think Spirit actually played really well. I would say the question is more Dada and Looper, but I think Spirit had like the good Jarvan ults. He had a lot of pressure. I would say the 2 wins that World Elite had were a lot to do with Spirit and STYZ making things happen in bottom lane and around the map. But like he had one really good Jarvan ult that I think completely turned a fight that would have other been in EDG's favor, for example. He's had some pretty decent team fighting. He's not... Of course, you're not going to have the same level as he was, just because I feel like Spirit had good synergy and good communication with his team, and right now he's transplanted into this brand new team. So you're not going to see the Spirit, right? You're not going to see him do super well initially.
No. This is too easy. Like, this is like a cop-out answer. Like, I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like this is like too basic. So let me ask you guys to push a little further on it. Mm-hmm. Give me what Spirit meant for Samsung Blue. Like, what were his jobs within that team's context? And now, like, apply this to World Elite. Is he doing the same thing? Is he doing less? Is he doing more?
In my opinion, he's doing much more. I think what he was tasked to do
give me a baseline first, like what he did for Samsung Blue.
Yeah, I was about to get that. For Samsung Blue, he provided a lot of, I would say, late game insurance / kind of structure. I felt like his plays were generally based around counter ganking, so he would keep the lanes alive. It's generally because you'll have with Samsung Blue, you'd have these
Dade and Acorn.
yeah, Dade, Acorn. They'd be kind of like they would have their scaling comps. They would really just be based around getting out of the lane decently because they would have weaker early games, and so he would be tasked to counter ganking, keeping their lanes alive, and really being that early game relevance, and then having that late game presence. And that's exactly what he did in these games. Actually, he brought out Kha'Zix, which I wasn't a believer in because Kha'Zix kind of suffers in the new patch. But man, he played extremely well in keeping Ninja well out of harm's way, and I felt like he was, of course, always trying his hardest to carry. I wasn't really too convinced on his, I forget what it's called, Olaf play, but it is what it is. Like
Olaf
he did
is really awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also
he played extremely well.
Yeah, he played well, and not to mention he was flexible with what he was playing. And like, I feel like if in a way, it's better than it even looks. Like, obviously, okay, sure, he wasn't Samsung Blue status like at prime time in like Korea, but usually players have like a slight falling at some point after they become like a world champion, just because they've kind of hit the peak and their willpower goes down a bit. And they probably just want to relax a bit.
Tell that to SKT.
Yeah, SKT is the one exception. SKT, that's why I love SKT. But like individually, like Spirit probably didn't go over there to. I mean, surely it was for money and stuff, but obviously it's probably like a lighter pace for him too, to be honest, in terms of training and stuff. I wouldn't personally know, but that would be part of my guess. But the fact that he did that with that World Elite roster and accomplished what he did was really, really good, and I was really impressed with him, honestly. And I mean, when the series was coming up, I didn't expect it to be anything but a stomp, and World Elite was actually extremely convincing. So. And Spirit was a big part of a lot of that. Like, I feel like he put a lot of pressure on the map, and EDG wasn't like quite ready for it a lot of the time. It was okay. It was
and that's why I say that I don't think Spirit is the best example of the quote unquote retirement home Korean play that we've seen from Looper. Not so much Looper, but Dade has had a little bit of a retirement home Korean kind of not really caring.
Yeah,
in the one series we saw from him.
Yeah, I mean they weren't world champions, but I mean they got pretty much to that point. They reigned in Korea for a while, so just for him to output that kind of efficiency, and like the thing for me is just that they got to the grand finals of Demacia Cup and put up that much of a fight against EDG with that lineup. So Spirit's got to be doing some work, honestly, because I don't feel like most of those members are individually strong by any means, and the coaching staff should deserve some credit too, I suppose.
So we've gone and we've kind of given the thumbs up, yes, for Spirit. He passed the test. He lived up to reputation. This was a successful transplant.
Given where he was planted, I think we can call it a success. Just because I think the skill disparity between him and other people on the team is relatively large.
And this directly segues into kind of the next kind of glaring question here, which is Ninja, which then, of course, becomes, we've had Ninja for, a full year now. We've gotten to see him, stretch his little wings, leave the bird's nest. And now we get to make the judgment. Now, typically, previously on the show, we've discussed that, in Sec Zero, those are, A-class Korean talent, if not S-class Korean talent. They showed up, they did their job well, but kind of in the first migration period of the Korean experiment, if you will, they came with a lot of B-rated talent. You got Khan, Ninja, Axie. Not saying that all of these players are B-rated, but it was kind of like, it wasn't the same names as Dade, Looper, Acorn all coming over here, Dandy, things like that. So now we're going to pass judgment on Ninja. Now, you just gave World Elite a ton of success for making it to the Demacia Cup Finals, and like arguably this best of 5 series was probably the best of 5 that China has seen all year.
Can I speak on World Elite getting to the finals? Because I feel like they had an extremely easy route there. Because
they have to beat OMG.
Yeah, they went through OMG.
They beat an OMG with Xu Young and Lua, though.
Yeah,
and
I guess.
Even that was their hardest. Like, they had to beat Snake, and then even in their group to get here, which EDG was unable... No, I mean, God. Which King was unable to get through because King had to go through EDG. World Elite had to get through only Positive Energy, and Positive Energy didn't have to actually face a team because that team forfeited in their group. So there was 3 teams, and actually is like only 2 teams. So like World Elite had a pretty easy skate through until they got to OMG. Obviously,
Okay, calm down, amazing.
I'm just saying, man.
Well,
They
and the
did not
team
have a
was
good round.
different in almost every single set they played, right?
Yeah.
Until the so I mean, it's not even we're not even making a judgment on them, I guess.
But
Yeah,
once
but I
they
mean,
got
like,
to EDG,
you can't necessarily call it like a fluke to get there either if they put up that much of a fight at the EDG. Because, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, because one set doesn't declare everything, but I just don't want to devalue like what they did to get there, because I know that I threw World Elite under the bus. I assumed that they would do terribly, and I was completely wrong, I guess.
And if we're talking about difficult sets to get there, like we saw the game where Edward Gaming played against whatever is left of Hang On Club, right?
All right,
Like,
yeah.
that doesn't. Starhorn Royal Club played against their sister team, filling in for EPC because I guess Starhorn Royal Club bought EPC, but it wasn't. I mean, even then, it wasn't their full sister team because you had like Blank playing for EPC.
Hey
So-
now,
No,
I hear
I'm not
Maple
saying-
Knight is a good mid laner.
That was Hang On Club anyway, but he was like the only one who was relevant in that entire game against EDG anyway. Like Namei was playing Kalista.
Okay.
You wanna-
Get off EDG. Get off. No.
I'm
You're
just saying,
sidetracking-
but like
no.
I think it's an invalid statement to make that they didn't have a difficult rise to there because all of these teams that we just mentioned both of those teams didn't have a first round. They didn't have a round of 32 opponent, right? Because they were in the top 4 of LPL Spring. So then they played, and I guess you could say EDG by virtue of playing King maybe had a harder time, but and
No.
they played Starhorn Royal Club, but like they
Listen.
weren't like super difficult. I'm just
Kelsey,
saying it's not super valid.
But I didn't even ask you that question. Telling me
I know
that they
you
didn't.
didn't. I'm talking
That
to
was, yeah, that
Raz.
was me.
I understand that you're talking to Raz, but focus. Ninja was the question. We were supposed to pass judgment
right.
on Ninja. And the whole reason that this subject came up is saying, I personally have said, like, Cola gets a lot of shit. Like, people shit on Cola. They think he's, like, a crappy player. But I said Starhorn Royal Club, like, obviously it was very apparent that they rode Uzi Eyes back into the World Finals, but they would not have gotten there if Cola didn't play the best games of his life. Like, obviously that skill ceiling isn't incredibly high because it's Cola, but like for Starhorn to make finals, that guy had to show up. So when we're speaking about Ninja, I want to speak in this kind of context with that type of mentality. Like for World Elite to get as far as they did, which they did get decently far for the gimped roster and Frankenstein roster that they had over the course of the year. This guy certainly had to show up despite having like what we have really labeled him kind of a mediocre presence.
But that's the thing about Ninja is he's mediocre. So he can play well, and actually he played much better against Shi-Young than Dade did, right? So
Yeah,
when
and I
we
also
had the World Elite versus OMG games.
I also feel like Yu's performance was like so inconsistent to judge Ninja off of in that lane matchup. Like one game he'll like completely stomp, the next game not so much, and so I feel like it's hard.
He's really good at Syndra, right? So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel
the context.
I just feel like it's hard to gauge him because I feel like a lot of the World Elite success in that series was based off team play rather than
You're gonna
just
say
Ninja
it's
being
hard to
individually good.
engage Ninja over an entire year that we've seen him play?
No.
He's mediocre.
I mean, if we're encompassing his entire career to this point, I feel like it's pretty mediocre. I've never thought that Ninja
Okay, that was the answer I was looking for.
I never thought that Ninja was a suitable replacement for Sukim. I've always thought Sukim was the better mid laner of the two. Recently, I don't know because Ninja did pretty well in this tournament. But he, like you said, he's had a full year to flesh himself out. He's had a full year to show what he has on the table. And honestly, I feel like World Elite was better before the whole Korean inclusion, which unfortunately included Ninja, who is inferior, in my opinion, to Sukim.
Here's my thing about Ninja is I think he actually is very reliant on his jungler, more so than some of the other mid laners that we talk about.
Why do you say this?
And I think this has a lot to do with his inconsistent play, because you'll see, for example, in I think it was NGF, where he was playing with Old B, right? And Old B more or less camped his lane when he was Cho'Gath. And that's how they got to the finals, is him playing Cho'Gath and Old B camping his lane in NGF, which NGF was a really, really short tournament, so it's a valid claim. And I think we'll see him play, like, he played Jace, and Pastry Time and Chris, who maybe didn't see him play Jace in LPL, who were casting, because I think he played it a few times. He actually had a couple really good Jace games in LPL, and I think that a lot of times because he was playing with Axon and Axon speaks Korean and he speaks Korean, like there was a tendency for Axon to gravitate towards Ninja's lane. And so he would succeed when there was a lot of pressure from the jungle, but he wouldn't do so well otherwise. Like, I think that that's a very valid criticism of Ninja, is that he just doesn't... Like, even when... Let's say that the entire mid lane, because we talk about how the junglers typically don't gank mid lane a lot, right, in China. Mm-hmm. They like to gravitate towards top, or they like to gravitate toward bottom, with the exception of maybe teams like OMG, things like that. And we saw that when World Elite would get ganked by Axon, Ninja would do well. But if there was no jungle pressure regardless, Ninja tended to lose lane a lot. He tended to do poorly. And then when he didn't win lane or doesn't do well in lane, I think he plays such that his team fighting presence is pretty non-existent. Like,
okay, let me ask you a question. Would you say the statement is accurate that Spirit camped Ninja's lane or ganked Ninja's lane more often than not for this best of 5?
No, because I think Spirit paid a lot more attention to STYZ as a general rule, because STYZ was the one carrying the game.
I agree, and also you is usually pretty adaptable in terms of playing safe, so it wouldn't be that great of a strategy anyway. I actually do think it was more bottom focused, and that's why STYZ got so fed a lot of the time. So I mean, a lot of times Namei was playing 2v3s, so...
Okay, so since Ninja didn't have that, that crutch effectively, was this just on the fact that he was facing you, who's pretty much the Froggen? And this isn't to say that Froggen's mediocre, because we're comparing you to what we've now just established as a mediocre mid. I think that Froggen, and I think that you is very good, and I think you is the Froggen of China, just in play style. But I mean, is this? Yeah, I mean, he doesn't exert much pressure. He kind of sits in the mid lane. He farms. He shows up for team fights, and he is the backbone and carry of his team effectively.
Yeah, and playstyle is definitely similar in my opinion.
But I mean, do you think like Ninja was kind of like stylistically, this was a good matchup against you?
I would say you got a lot. Yeah, go on.
I was actually going
to just say.
Go ahead, Rez. I'll show you go first.
Okay. I just think it was a perfect matchup for him, simply because I guess you wasn't providing as heavy of a pressure other mid laners would in the lane, so that's why I think he benefited quite a bit from it. Ninja did. So yeah, go on.
But I think in 3 of those 5 games, like, you essentially destroyed him. Like,
he did.
But that's also because I also
Froggen of China.
Yeah, I also think that's because of the heavy bot lane focus and stuff. And like the thing is when Yu is left alone in a champion with kill potential, he will beat Ninja because he's a better mid laner. But in other circumstances, Ninja can actually look to come out even or decent just because Yu is that safe mid laner. And since he's so used to having that jungle pressure from before World Elite, like the old World Elite squad, which you haven't seen for a while, and now he has Spirit, he's been trying to adapt and I guess just focus on not dying, which is what it looks like. So you kind of don't really have a very interesting mid lane dynamic there, I feel, for this particular matchup.
Let's go to STYZ. Now, this is the return of STYZ again to kind of like Spark notes this. STYZ formerly played on LGD. He was then fined and benched for 6 months for trying to trade or take a deal with another team to get more money. Effectively, he was trying to leave LGD, and he got caught kind of in the act. And there was a lot of hype around this guy. He was thought to be, one of the best AD carries in China. Like every single AD carry in China, they're all the best in China. But STYZ did have a very big reputation behind him. So this was the return of STYZ, especially showing up on World Elite, who their previous Frankenstein roster had a fairly insignificant AD carry, especially in comparison. But this is even better because we had fairly insignificant. We had, like, not only was this return of like one of the most hyped AD carries, STYZ, but it was against Namei. Like, the only way that this could have been like equal or better is if this was against like Imp or Deft or Uzi. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got to, really show his merit. He got a couple of really good solo 1v1 kills on Namei. So here comes the question. Namei versus STYZ. Like, we always rank AD carries, but before this guy had been kicked out of the split, so he never got to, make it in. Now we've seen him previously when he played. We've now seen him make his return in a very, the grand finals of the Demacia Cup, facing off against Namei, World Elite versus EDG, next time on Dragon Ball Z. Like, go. Like, Who's better?
Okay, so this is something like my brain did not want to believe. And like, okay, so here's the thing: is Namei had so much time to fix his shit at Worlds, and Styz or S2YZ, I don't know, I said Styz, but he's he's kind of re-debuted into the pro scene, so to speak. So obviously he's had less experience in terms of actual competition. So yeah, man, I was like, maybe Namei still has food poisoning. maybe like his cat died. Like, I don't know, man. But I just like, I can't. It sucks because he's my favorite AD carry. But if I want to be realistic, he's hasn't really recovered. I don't know. He wasn't really that impressive. Granted, he did have a lot of pressure from Spirit, so the lane wasn't always in his favor due to that. But man, the thing is I want to say, what's that?
Is the fact that STYZ had Conan and Namei had
yeah. I know, man. And like this, like, I tried.
And Conan actually looked like he was playing well, which
yeah.
I was actually
Conan's a god.
I was actually writing down notes, and I'm like, no, I just can't do it. Like, he's just not doing well. Period. And it sucked. But I will say that for STYZ, I'd like to see more AD carries because he played like primarily Lucian. So I'd like to see more flexibility out of him. But
he played the same things that he did before, which was like
right.
Lucian, Caitlyn, and Ezreal, and those were the champions we know he's good at. And then when Twitch became in meta during the spring, like, we saw some of his positional flaws. So I would like, but the thing is right now in meta we don't have a lot of immobile AD carries anywhere at all. So
okay, this
at
is
the moment, but the other
Okay,
I'm going to talk about SDYZ. You can do it if you want after I'm done.
Oh my god.
Even though Kelsey cut me off, right? She's just like, I'm the boss now, bitch.
This SDYZ thing has been something that I've been going back and forth on for a while now, right?
You just like killed our cat. Oh my god.
I think he's good. He's very good. He's talented. He obviously... Like, he reminds me a little bit of, like, when he understands how to go in with his escapes instead of how to back out. That's, yeah. Wei Xiao. I wasn't going to invoke the name, but when he's, like, playing in teamfights really well, or when he's winning very well, that's kind of how he looks. My issue with STYZ is, from my standpoint, he has very obvious attitude problems in the way he plays. Like, not just, we don't even have to talk about, I thought he had attitude problems before this thing came out with Akfun and LGD, because every time his team would start to lose and LGD would start to lose, he would go bottom and he would just push as far as he can. He would never join a team fight. Yep. He just, like, constantly and then he, like, it's a really easy strategy if World Elite loses all of their other lanes. If a team can rely on winning all the other two lanes against World Elite, which, considering Aluka and Ninja are not the strongest solo laners, it's a really good strategy to just then, like, ward the bottom area of the map on a team with a STYZ in it, and then just, like, expect him to be down there and gank him.
Wait, before you go on, just let me emphasize a point before I think it gets kind of muddied up. And you can correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but I just want to, like, really underline this. You're not saying that you dislike STYZ because he may be an asshole. Like, no. You don't care that he's an asshole, but the fact is that he's an asshole and it negatively impacts his game performance. Like, Cloud, in theory, is causing, either between San and Cloud, some sort of problems were happening emotionally, but they would still show up and do their thing. That would be fine. Like, we don't care if a player's a dickbag as long as he shows up and he wins the game. But if a player's a dickbag or has an attitude problem or communication problems and goes bot and loses his game, that becomes a problem.
And I think that he kind of did the same thing in the last two games of the series. Like, I think that World Elite, pretty much as soon as SDYZ resigned himself to doing that, they had no chance. And then EDG could just send 5 people bottom, which they were doing anyway after they figured out that was World Elite's strategy, is that they were going to gank for SDYZ. They figured that out, and they just sent everyone bottom all the time anyway. And he just started tilting. Like, I thought that's what it looked like. I obviously don't know for sure if that's what he was doing, but that's how he was playing. I don't know. Maybe the shot caller was saying, yeah, just go bottom, push out, and he just wasn't warding and there was no communication. Like, that's possible. But he used to do this a lot on LGD too. So I think he's a very talented and a very skilled player, and I'd really like him to, I guess, improve some of these weaknesses that he has. And I'd like to see him on a non-positional AD carry and a more position-based AD carry that doesn't get these escapes. because I want to see if he's improved in that regard too. Like I don't hate STYZ or think he's a terrible player. It's just that I feel that these flaws are very serious problems that he needs to fix if he wants to become like a very, very, very talented AD carry in LPL.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a microcosm of like the difference between Namei and STYZ. Like when it was Lucian versus Ezreal the first game, we saw STYZ just solo kill Namei, just go like hard on the paint, came forward, got the Gatling. As soon as Namei spawned, he shot an Ezreal from base and he nailed the first dragon. Like he stole it from World Elite. Like, and that's like that's literally the difference between them.
That's actually that's a pretty good representation.
I really want to because I feel like this is my biggest issue with STYZ and this matchup between STYZ and Namei. Namei, I feel like maybe it was disrespectful. Like it was kind of an unfortunate idea, but it worked out in the end. He played Ezreal most of these games, and he would always build tier first. So he was a scaling AD carry. And STYZ realized this, and he solo killed him, and he was like, okay, he had a lot of pressure early on. But after a while, you just saw how Namei had way more pressure than STYZ did. Of course, the dragon, he gave more in team fights, and when he started to scale up, he was providing more damage in those fights. And so he saw how, and there was even one time, this is game one, STYZ misplayed his advantage that he had in the lane, because of course he had Nami, god damn it. Yeah, he had Nami, Lucian. That's a really strong lane against that. And of course he got the solo kill. He has a significant CS advantage, and of course he got a kill early on. How does he use it? While Conan is warding up, he gets caught 2v1, and he gets completely destroyed. And so of course it's alright, so that's there goes that. He later on comes back, immediately comes back into the lane. He gets flash ulted by Warwick, and so it's oh well, he can't do much about that. But I feel like that in itself kind of started tilting him, because he made some serious positioning errors. There was one time they started chasing the Lissandra. He alone, while everyone's chasing Lissandra through the through Dragon River, he goes through the enemy jungle, is being tailed by the Gnar, and so they just sandwich him, and he gets blown up by that. So he had an advantage, and he completely gets demolished based on his positioning errors, and that's where you see Namei is a superior in that factor. And then later on in the in game 2, game 3, you start to see him start to shine. And I don't know, maybe it's just because Namei just couldn't get scaling with the Ezreal. I'm not sure why they didn't just 2v1 it. I'm whatever. It's not that big of a deal. I think he was just really confident in that matchup. But I just think coming out of that series, I think Namei is better. Just based on position, just based on decision making alone, because in that game 1, another point I want to make is that we all know the comp that World Elite that EDG was trying to set off. They have Warwick, they have Lissandra. So it's very valuable that you keep your flash on Lucian. And of course he was split pushing the bottom lane. He gets grouped up on, and he blows his flash. And the next team fight, he immediately gets killed because he doesn't have his flash, because he was split pushing a lane for some random reason. So I don't know. I think he's a great mechanical AD carry, probably one of the best in the regions, but he just has I don't know.
What does that mean in China? You know what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying. Mechanically, STYZ is a great AD carry, but I make this point a lot when I talk about the kind of the differences between the West and Korea, for example. Well, let's just say the West and China right now. When people talk about AD carries in the West, obviously you're talking about Double Lift, Wild Turtle, Sneaky, people like that. They say something oh, I love Double Lift. He's a really good mechanical AD carry. And I'm sitting here thinking bitch, if you're not mechanical, this isn't a gold star. That's supposed to be a baseline. You're supposed to be mechanically good to be an AD carry. So STYZ, yeah, he looks really good, but in his region, especially the mechanic bar is set that much higher because you're fucking participating even now with the region, Deft, Imp, Uzi, Namei, yeah. These are not joke names. If your only claim to fame is, hey, I'm really mechanically good, and this is partly why I personally am so hard on Uzi, not only because of his failure domestically to make anything happen, but the fact is if his only claim to fame is that he's just mechanically amazing, which he's probably at the highest point you can be mechanically as an AD carry, that doesn't necessarily mean much for me as I'm judging it. So like when people say like STYZ, he's good because he's mechanic. Like I don't give a fuck. He pushes bot lane and he gets ganked for no reason, and then just like dies. Like that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, like that's just the thing. That's why I will never. I will understand, but like it really boggles my mind. People who really like put STYZ on a pedestal. I was like, he's such a mechanical god. Well, guess what, man? You're in China. Guess how many other people?
You're in China now.
Look at the competition. Your claim to fame has to be being smart. You have to be a smarter player, not just like, oh, well, guess what? No, I'm a good AD carry. I know how to like press buttons. Everyone knows how to press buttons in that scene. When it comes, like, I'm probably oversimplifying it. Obviously, I'm saying that there are a lot of mechanical.
You're not oversimplifying it. Like
you just need to make better plays. Like, come on.
As someone who's been watching scrims for like 9 hours, like for the past 4 days in China specifically, they all know how to press their buttons really well.
This is my in STYZ's defense, is I think you're simplifying this a little bit, is that when he does show up to the team fights, okay, so he's decided not to split push bottom.
See, that's a good point that you can give to Uzi, which they talked about on SI, that I assume that you're about to give to STYZ.
I think Uzi is much more one-dimensional even than STYZ in what I've seen of him.
Cutting him down.
Because I don't think STYZ relies on his teammates to peel for him as much as Uzi does. Like, I think that Uzi, people say that Uzi is this big diva, but I think that like he trusts his teammates so much to back him up. Like
trustful flashes his team.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then he does really good things inside the team fight, like the dodging and stuff. But the initial initiate on Uzi, I don't think is nearly as calculated. Whereas I feel like with STYZ, it's almost like, okay, if I use this ability here to get into the team fight, like, can I get out on my own, is I think more his thought process. So in terms of how I see them play. So that would be my thing there. And that's why, again, Uzi looked very bad 2013 LPL Spring, is because he didn't have the teammates who could do that for him, right? So he would just go in and he'd be like, guys, what are you doing? Why are you
Would you say that STYZ... Okay, so I've been watching a lot of OGN. Like, I don't normally watch it, but I've been watching a lot of OGN. My favorite team right now is Samsung. I just love how they play. Like, obviously, they're kind of like the recreation of the KT Arrows. Yeah. But Fury, would you say that STYZ is kind of like Fury? Because I think they're actually really similar in what they do, especially if you're trying to emphasize this point that STYZ like knows exactly when to go in at like the perfect time so that he can like barely make it out with like 11 HP. Like, I feel like Fury is incredibly calculated in understanding like when he goes in, how much damage and how much shit is about to rain down on his head.
Yeah, I would say so. And I've been following Fury for like since he was on Prime Optimus. Funny enough,
oh my god, they didn't bring over that career.
They didn't bring Fury. No World Elite Fury? Question mark.
Oh my god.
No. World Elite's not picking up Fury. All right, World Elite is going to pick up Cloud, and Cloud and SYYZ can be BM and attitude. They can have attitude problems like all day. I don't care, but that is the dream lane right there, man.
Okay, Starhorn, this is your goal. It's Cole in the top lane, Insec in the jungle, Corn in the mid lane, fucking Fury and AD carry, Cloud on support. Make it happen. No, okay.
Yeah, we talked about. Yeah, he does. He kind of reminds me of STYZ quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, Drexen, do you have any final thoughts on or closing statements on STYZ before I move on?
Yeah, most of you guys covered everything, but I also wanted to say that another thing that makes like STYZ a little more impressive and Namei in a little bit more of a negative light is that Namei's has had this long pedigree and has had this time to develop his skill. And the worrying thing about the future is that Namei looks like he's slowly falling off, which is a lot hard to recover from an STYZ's current predicament, where he's been on a hiatus and he still showed up extremely well. And all the flaws that we mentioned and talked about with him, those are all actually fixable issues if he's an innately skilled player. Whereas if Namei is just falling off, then he's just falling off. Granted, like I said, I felt like they always had the losing lane matchup, and Spirit applied a lot more pressure than Clearlove, because I feel like Clearlove only really ganked when convenient, which is a big surprise. But
those drive-by ganks.
Drive-by ganks. But no, yeah, and that's the problem. Like, and also STYZ, like, and I hate using age as an excuse, but he is a young guy, and these kind of personality issues and things that make him choke in game can be ironed out, and that's not the same as someone that's like like a legacy player, so to speak. I feel.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys agree.
So we have when I wrote down the notes for the show, we have three kind of main components for the show. We have the Demacia Cup, and then, of course, we have to move into the OMG Uzi thing, and then we move into kind of like the best of ranking. No, okay. But the closing and kind of segue between the World Elite Demacia Cup EDG games and the OMG kind of big news is the identity of World Elite as a team. Like, we covered this, you know, probably at nauseum as it's slowly been transforming. We covered it at the beginning of the show, but, like, someone take it from me, like, as we transitioned into OMG, because OMG has now kind of taken up the mantle that World Elite had, in a sense. Like, World Elite was the Chinese team. It was the religion of LoL for Chinese, and now, like, Uzi to OMG. This is literally the first ever real super team. Like, there has never been a super team. Maybe CLG EU, you could kind of argue, but, like, this has the best players of their position across every single role from the same region.
I think we have to wait until we confirm a support, right, before we make that claim.
I was assuming Cloud. If Tabe gets in there, fuck it, we're done.
Yeah, okay.
They're
Spoilerino, but yeah, that's my concern.
So, they're a ridiculous amount of.
Oh my god, can you imagine that? Like, this would be so typical OMG, because OMG always second, or always
like,
third, I should say, never.
Thing, right? Yeah.
If they're just like, we have in our grasp, boys, this is the roster that'll take us to Worlds, and they're like, sign Tabe right now.
Yeah.
No, World Elite's identity. Like, talk to me about the transition from World Elite to OMG.
Pretty much.
Anyone.
World Elite is dead. No.
No,
Elite,
you're right.
Yeah. I mean, World
That
Elite
in my heart.
at one point in time, and we
They
cling
ran
to
it
this.
over with a car.
We cling to this because we're on China Talk, right? But at one point in time, World Elite was the best team in the world, okay? I mean, that's the... They didn't lose a single international or
Hey,
domestic...
Kelsey.
What?
You know what China doesn't have?
I know, they don't have a World's title. Good.
You know who does? Europe.
Europe does. No. So they went on a 6-month spree where they didn't lose a series. Very exciting. Yay, World Elite. World Elite was on a lot of talk shows. They had a lot of fans who weren't just League of Legends fans. People knew who World Elite was. And they liked them in part because they thought, these are good-looking guys. Like, Namei was pretty handsome. Messiah, very, very dashing, good-looking.
Pretty handsome.
You know? Oh, yeah. Oh, good stuff. And Wei Xiao's very, very cute, very adorable face. He never smiles, but, you know, that's part of his charm. So, World Elite, very popular, very popular. So, then suddenly they have to replace Messiah, Clear Love, and FZZF because of a lot of the drama, which may or may not have been started by Aaron. And they replace these players with initially Sukum and Ra and Conan. Conan, you can say whatever you want about him. Apparently, they performed better in lane, I think, than FCZF and Wei Xiao did towards the end of their tenure, and just in general, just because you can tell that FCZF and Wei Xiao just probably didn't respect each other or weren't getting along that well, so they didn't perform well in lane, whereas I guess Wei Xiao really liked playing with Conan for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And so they did pretty well, and then Ru and Sukum were like these. They were from Rising Stars, which was this team that was kind of like MD that couldn't get into LPL, but supposedly had amazing players. So they finally split that team up, and they put Ru and Sukum on World Elite, and they initially didn't do that great, but by the end of the LPL regular season, they had placed third. And in the playoffs, they took a game off of both World Elite and OMG. So they were able to take games off of those teams. Then it comes out that, okay, they've hired Hero, this new coach, and by the way, they're benching Sukum and Ru, who just started to really click with the team, and they're pulling in these two Korean players that, unless you follow the Korean scene, you probably hadn't heard of them. Like, pretty closely, Axine and Ninja from Prime Optimus, and Axine, who used to be kind of on Jin Air, but he was involved in that Promise scandal, so people kind of didn't want to touch him for a while. but they came down to World Elite. And initially, it was really good because they had the lane swap meta where the AD carry could kind of 1v1, and Conan didn't have to screw up the lane at all, so he could just like roam around and get some ganks off. And he was actually pretty good at that. And they did really well for a while because I think you could say that those games didn't rely a lot on a lot of communication as much. But then when the meta changed and there were a lot of 2v2s, they started losing really hard to pretty much every team in LPL. And they fell out of the top four, didn't even go to playoffs, and Xiaomei and Wei Xiao retired, and then World Elite was no longer World Elite, pretty much. I think a lot of... Like, Hero was more or less let go. They worded it diplomatically, but apparently he didn't do a lot of coaching. A lot of actual coaching, so I mean,
it's not that surprising based on the last split.
Based on the fact that they started to lose so hard. So I mean, World Elite it kind of, and then they fielded a bunch of random players, but yeah, that happened.
Basically, they just really lost their identity. I mean, they were crowdfunded and all this other stuff, and like literally everything that made them that beacon that people wanted to provide for is just kind of like evaporated. And OMG now stands as that kind of like beacon in a way, just because it's like the China hope because of the raw talent on that team, and the fact that the team has done has made big steps and like huge leaps in like, you know, increasing their publicity even to the Western world, like, you know, with their, you know, their different videos and stuff like that. And like, I think it's like one of the teams that can be most internationally related to from the outside. So, I mean, it's just the combination of those two. That's the fact that they could actually probably win worlds with this roster, and just that they've built themselves up to like be pretty much indisputably the most popular Chinese team, at least internationally. That they kind of have taken this identity from World Elite, I would say. But the question is, will they end up as dominant? Because I don't think anyone's going to take that streak away from World Elite, except for SKT, who had a very similar dominance. So
yeah, I don't wanna take the air out of this entire like hurrah, because I think that like OMG like right now looks pretty hot. And before I was like kind of like stabbing him because last couple episodes, huh?
I said they'll fuck it up.
Yeah.
they'll find some way. It's just what they do.
Yeah, before I was stabbing them because I remember their last. Oh god, I thought Xiang was gonna take a place in there, which would be horrible. But no, now it looks like it's cool. Uzi and of course the random blank slate in the supporting role. It's probably gonna be Cloud, but
Hopefully,
man,
they have so many people to choose from, man. I don't know.
Yeah, like I'm so sad because honestly, like OMG's biggest problem has always been their support, and it's like, yeah, sure, you got Uzi now, but come on, there's an actual gaping hole in your like lineup that's always been a problem. So please fix it. That's the only thing I care about is the supporting role. I wouldn't even care if like Cool went away and they put in Xiang. Sure, that would have been a problem, but supporting role, I want that like dealt with, and I feel like China has always had such amazing support talent in their scene, be it in the LSPL, LPL. I don't know why they limit themselves to Cloud and Dada, and I don't even know who else they have on their bench. Like, I understand Cloud's an amazing player, but if he has such a massive like problem with like attitude, then they should like dig deep. Like, I really don't know why they're not looking for other players, but that's nepotism, maybe? I have no idea. I don't understand the entire aspect.
I think nepotism might be a stretch. I mean, they just have that very like communicable feel, though. Mm-hmm. Like, they're very familial in how they operate.
There are several. So the OMG identity, which we talked about, the World Elite identity is like the quote-unquote Chinese national team. OMG's identity is kind of like the Cloud9 identity, in that they're just these friends who get along and they enjoy the game. And supposedly, even there's this rumor that Loveling and Cool used to play together in the same PC cafe, just like before they even started playing LoL. And then we at least know that they played a different MOBA together. So before they played League of Legends, so they were just friends who are really good at the game. They have this insane synergy. They happen to win the lottery in that they've top jungle mid. I think the OMG philosophy is almost like we can raise these Chinese talents to get along and be good friends. So obviously it's possible that UZI joining the lineup means that they're kind of even foregoing that identity a little bit. I'm much more personally interested in what they said about the new training methods that they want to do. I heard some rumors that they were going to get a Korean coach. So if they have a new Korean coach, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they got rid of TT because they kept Chris on for Star Royal Club, right?
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So they have Chris and Baikal, and apparently that works really well. So, no.
So this is the identity that OMG has taken. So now we get to kind of cover into the big news of why this becomes really relevant. Of course, it was the UZI to OMG, which, in all honesty, was probably the last thing. I mean, I was completely blindsided by that. And I guess so was UZI's teammates, perhaps. But but let's kind of talk about it. I know they talked about it on Sunday Insight, and they were trying to find, like, a measurable, like, counter to it, you know what I'm saying, like, to have this ever happen. And I think Monty was even bold enough to say that this is probably the biggest move in League of Legends history as far as, like, superstar talent and what it actually means. So let's just start there. Like, what are your guys' initial reactions? Do you agree with that assessment? And then we can kind of move into, like, either the strengths and weaknesses and actually breaking it down as people, because, you know, we should have more experience with, like, the LPL scene than pretty much, like, anyone else who's probably commented on this.
So ignoring the rumors about the giant conglomerate that owns everything and the rumors of the money that got handed over and all this other stuff, UZI to OMG is really huge. Like,
I'd argue it's the biggest roster change of all time, personally.
In
terms
Legends,
of solitary, yeah.
Just in terms of consolidating talent, like when has there been a case where a team with the best player, supposedly I mean, you can make some arguments, the best player in each role in a region, besides their bottom lane, gets arguably the best AD carry in the role in their region in China. So again, you can make arguments about these guys, but at least their names have been thrown around. They're like top 2, top 3, and they get this giant AD carry who's been to 2 Worlds finals, right? He's arguably the best known international player because he's been in 2 Worlds finals.
I'd like to point out the fact that this, like, it's kind of like a mirror image, because EU just did the same thing with Reckless, going over to, like, God, names
Alliance?
are really bad right now. Alliance, there we go. That's the name. I remember you guys.
I mean,
I don't know, man. I'm going to let you finish just because, yeah, I don't agree initially either. It seems like way different.
It's similar. It's not the same. Uzi's obviously, like, I think is a bigger acquisition just based on, like, how much history of dominance he's had. But it's somewhat there. It's like,
I'm not talking
about the Alliance,
Reckless.
like, you can't really compare the context just because, like, Wicked isn't going, you know. You know, I mean, I don't know. You can't really line them up there.
Wicked is, like, among the top laners in his region necessarily. So,
I mean, I think Anne Prague, she made a good comparison. It's like if Double Lift left CLG and went to TSM.
Okay, I was thinking that, yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
I mean,
like,
because
honestly,
it's also it's the AD carry that has the pedigree and also is insanely popular, you know, even internationally. So I think that is probably the best comparison, and the brands are very recognizable.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even go there just because I feel like the biggest thing about this acquisition is how individually talented within their own region these players are. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Not even just that they're popular or recognized or that the team of OMG itself is really good, right?
Okay.
But that the players themselves are so, like, this. If you, we always said that if you took, like, this is, and not even that, but this is, like, the biggest wish of the Chinese fan base besides the old World Elite getting back together. So, like, the Chinese fans every year almost say, bench Son, pick up UZI. So much so that when I started hearing these rumors, I just completely ignored them, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone wants this to happen in every transfer season, and
It's
then
like
it
the
happens.
Chris Piglet thing. Everybody jokes about it and like, nah, man, that ain't even possible.
Jokes on them.
That's why I made the comparison, the EU comparison. I don't want to make this into EU talk, but I just felt like the idea, the team dynamic.
We're
top
Korea
2
talk.
teams. Just the top 2 teams. Wicked, even though you could have your issues with him, I think he is one of the top laners. That's funny. Of the region. So it's an interesting comparison you can make based on the relevance within the region. So there you go.
So now let's talk about kind of like what it actually means in the dynamic of the team. And so far, kind of the general consensus is that Uzi, like just statistically, he demands the most gold and the most resources of intake on his team. And we've said for a long time, or at least I'll say like one of my biggest criticisms of Uzi and Starhorn Royal Club as general in a team is they don't change their playstyle whether they're 5k gold up or they're 5k gold down. And this is why I never really thought of them as like a world-class team, despite them, going to Worlds and going to the finals twice in a row. So what the fuck do I know? You know what I'm saying? But
this is why people think that you're a bad analyst, Ryan.
I look at Starhorn Royal Club and I'm just like, OMG, why do you have to... This is literally it. OMG is the quarterback and Starhorn Royal Club is the ball. And every Worlds, Starhorn doesn't have to be the best team. They just have to beat OMG. Like, literally, that's all it is. It's just a stylistic matchup. For whatever reason, they can't get their shit together.
UZI, you are the chosen one. You're
doesn't
supposed
matter.
to beat the dark forces.
It doesn't matter.
Starhorn Sand coming in?
In a league where the reason we have leagues and structures is because it's supposed to determine who's the best team consistently, and OMG consistently is the best team. That doesn't matter. Starhorn Royal Club's the best team in China because they consistently make Worlds. These are the two polar arguments that I have fighting with me right now.
Oh, God.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Uzi, pros and cons for OMG.
I want to say that, like, okay, just because he is like a huge gold soak, I think there's a statistic where Starhorn Royal Club, when they don't funnel all the gold towards bottom lane, is actually when they're most successful. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that, like, if they don't do that, then that team can't operate, or if, like, Uzi doesn't have all the gold, he can't operate. I mean, it's going to take some, like, leashing and, like, maybe, like, a whip and, like, calm down, bitch, it's my lane, but, I mean, I don't necessarily think they're incapable of working around that. Especially, and like, no matter what, I still, as much as I give love for San, and I'm like, he's like the poor beaten puppy that I have to like console. It's like, okay, they still love you. It's just harsh love, you just like pet them. But no, like,
support.
yeah, but no matter where this goes, OMG's already been fairly dominant, and this can only be an upgrade. I feel like, even if they have some adjustment periods, and if they adjust very well to a healthy gold distribution, it'll be a huge upgrade. But if not, it'll still be an upgrade. I feel.
Which is a good point to make because I think it's not going to be a very difficult adjustment period just because of how both teams have been really making that stride to kind of like meet each other. Like, for instance, I'm trying to think of it. OMG has been trying to put more gold into the bottom lane, I feel like, during the
San and Cloud had a great World, so...
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they were probably the most consistent.
Yeah, that's true. And Starhorn Royal Club has been trying to do the same thing in which they've been trying to take the resources not so much away from the bottom lane, but just trying to like distribute it equally into the other lanes. So I think Uzi and Uzi and OMG will be. It's not going to be a difficult process. They've been already heading in that direction to begin with.
Excuse me, Raz. You said Uzi, and I believe that the Demacia Cup announcer last night said.
My apologies.
No Flamerino.
It's UZI. All right.
We always do something to make everyone hate us, at least once a show, so it's okay. There we go. That was our ticket. That slot has been used up. We got to calm down now.
No, all I have to say is I've been in Shanghai for 4 days. Every single time Uzi comes up in conversation, it's Uzi. It's never been Uzi. Ever.
Take that, Kobe.
Drops my pen. That's all. That's all. Continue.
I went through the trouble of like recording it and uploading it to SoundCloud, so I'm obviously the worst offender here. Okay, this is going to be Kelsey's rant. Okay, we're good. She's almost prepared the speech.
We need a speech. It's like Kelsey's rant, just like have her just like full screen.
But so the thing about pretty much every time someone has asked me, UZI joining OMG, I have said this is like a terrible idea, right? That it's no coincidence that UZI every time will go to Worlds with these players who are not really considered that good for the most part, right? And that's how he wins, is that he relies on them not necessarily even using gold towards him, but just funneling all of their resources into peeling for him, right? making sure that he stays alive when he goes into these team fights. And I think that's more of an issue than the gold thing. Because as Drexen mentioned about the statistic that when Starhorn Royal Club started doing well, that was when they funneled kill gold away from UZI. I actually showed that UZI, I think, was the second most receiving kills proportion for his team. The most of course, was Wei Xiao. Until Starhorn Royal Club started winning, he received the largest proportion of kills from his team of anyone else in LPL except for Wei Xiao. And then Wei Xiao was not Wei Xiao, but then when they started winning when they beat 2-0'd both EDG and OMG, you look at those, and actually Korn received more kills than UZI did for those two series. And Cola received more kills than he pretty much ever had the entire... like, he's like, oh my god, this is what it feels like to have power.
I have gold.
He flashes a bear.
You mean it doesn't take me 5 minutes to kill this tower? What? No. But, so that's... and then when I compared it to like the team that looked the most like the distribution of gold, because we talk about the amount of damage that OMG does and the amount of damage they did in World's group stages, was split completely evenly across the 4 players. We aren't counting Dada7 as a player on that team, but Go
Fair game.
Cool and San all did about even proportion of damage, right? Which is just crazy. And that's why Loveling had such like a crazy damage statistic compared to the rest of the junglers in group stages. So they contribute to putting damage on all of their players, on all of their carries. So they want that gold spread around, but more importantly, they want those players to do damage and not necessarily have cool play Orianna every game. So I'm worried more about the strategical aspects the strategic aspects that OMG has, where they have different players who they've made San a carry in the past. Like, this is a myth that San always plays support style. He's had the crazy 14-1 Kog'Maw game, so they know. And then during LPL 2013, I did an interview actually with their coach where he said, actually, we've made this conscious decision to make San the primary carry right now. I think that was partly because they didn't know what to do with Xiong on the team. They didn't really know how successful that would work. Mm-hmm. But they've done that in the past. That's a strategy that they can run, is they can make their AD carry the big focus. I'm just worried that it might become the only strategy they can run, and that this team, in theory, this team that anyone in any lane can carry, right, will suddenly become more one-dimensional. And that's my biggest concern. I think they can do it. I think they can adapt to put a lot of gold and a lot of peel on UZI. I would advise that they not do that every game.
Yeah, but does UZI need the amount of resources that he normally gets to? Because, I mean, effectively, he needed all those resources to drag the body bags that were attached to him across the finish line. Whereas, like, with OMG, this should just be a fucking breeze. This should be, he's got Cool in the mid lane, he's got going in the top lane, Leveling in the jungle, maybe Tabe. Maybe we're dragging that across, but
I think that UZI might need all those resources initially to not feed. But the thing about OMG is if he goes in and he dies, I guess Cool and Going can still blow them up. Like, that works okay. And then eventually he'll figure it out. Maybe. We'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting to see if they decide to, I'm actually really curious. What happens if UZI goes into 5 people and instantly blows up? Like, can Cool and Going then carry? That's the question, because it was a big deal on all of his teams when he would go in and he wouldn't necessarily get that peel, or he wouldn't necessarily kill 3 people instantly, or be able to move around the fight optimally, or he would miscalculate one skill shot and get hit and blow up or something. If that happened, the game was pretty much over in all of Starhorn World Cup's games. But we've seen, for example, Edward Gaming, if Wei Xiao gets caught, against LGD, when Wayless would go in and he would Lissandra ult Namei, and Namei would be gone in the fight, and then instantly you would just blow up everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that something that OMG can then do? That's the question, because I'd feel like Starhorn Royal Club couldn't do that.
I feel like, like I said, I feel like they can. I feel like stylistically it is going to be a weird adjustment, but I do feel like UZI definitely has that insurance policy now. It's just that he's probably not going to have that, old flashy glory that people know him for. He'll probably, just kind of, if he adjusts well and meshes well with a new team and they synergize well and all that stuff, he'll probably be just a good AD carry. But I also feel like I'm almost wondering what the perception of his play will be, because if Uzi ends up being this kind of not the primary carry but just a solid AD carry on his team, will people perceive him like San? Because he's not going to be doing all this flashy stuff and hard carrying his team, just because that's how OMG has their AD carry operate within the bounds of the team. So that's the big question for me, because I'm he obviously will have that large, that mechanical skill that's huge, but we already had that huge rant about mechanical skill, right? Obviously that's a huge boon to himself, but it's not like San was awful at that either. It's just that within the confines of his teams, there was two other people that were massive carries on that team, where he just kind of took a backseat, and I'm wondering where UZI will fill into that whole dimension.
So here's the question. Oh, sorry, go Raz.
Oh, no worries. I wanted to say, bringing it back to EU talk, it's just the entire idea of what a supportive... San suffers from the same kind of stigma that, Tabs suffers from. Because, it's just the idea of what does AD carry, what is his role on the team? Because you cannot have 3 carries on the team. You need someone that bring that consistency. And although I've, also been that person to criticize San's play... it's something that everyone has to kind of including myself, kind of bring it back and just kind of look at the entire team as a whole, the team dynamic and what he's supposed to bring to that team. And so San is that guy who brought the consistency. He had games, of course, in which he's carried, and he's had games where he's tasked to simply not so much play safe, but just to do his role. And that's extremely important. And what Uzi does, and Uzi has that kind of, on Starhorn Royal Club, he's always going to try to carry. Regardless, he will try. And so what will happen is that teams will just kind of structure around a kill the Uzi comp, well, not comp, but just entire strategy where they'll bring their jungler down there and they'll try to kill him. And if you kill Uzi, well, here's your prize, you win the game. It is how it is, and I'm just kind of worried. That's the only thing that I'm worried about. Of course, A is OMG support, who is it going to be, and at the same time, is Uzi going to kind of bring it back and kind of play the team role? How is that going to work out?
And I always like to go back to when UZI played mid, because I think this is the one argument against UZI being some terrible, difficult diva who won't play a team game.
Yeah.
I think Frost died.
Frostgren died. We lost our host. Oh no.
Rest in peace. We can survive, friends.
The only problem is the overlays, of course, until she gets back. But,
okay.
So the big thing is that when UZI does stuff, I had a train of thought at one point. Yes. Okay, so my big thing about the support, and I guess I completely lost it. Someone go on.
I got it.
We've got this. We've got our hero.
Sorry. Okay,
Welcome back.
So we're in this,
Hero with an E, not with an I.
Let me explain this gaming house right now, for whatever reason, because we're in Shanghai. It's a really nice gaming house, but the power, for whatever reason, around this time period just randomly goes out. I don't know if our neighbor is connected to our I'm trying to think of the word,
Wi-Fi?
Electrical. They're all hopping on the Wi-Fi.
We can't. I don't know.
Power box, I guess.
Our poor team has lost so many ranked games in their grind on their Chinese accounts just because of fucking power outages. It's awful. I feel so bad. They're still 20-2 though. So,
Okay.
This is
So many games.
In other news, no, this is the topic that I wanted to cover. So, Uzi leaves for OMG pretty much at the very last second available for them for the transfers. That leaves Cola, Insect Corn, blank spot, and then 0. But literally, this happened at the last second for lock-in. So Starhorn Royal Club, what the fuck do? You just lost your star ADC, the guy that, in traditional fashion, Starhorn Royal Club has this reputation that at the beginning of every single split, they just crash and burn. And we're it's not going to happen this time. Uzi is here, solid roster. Corn's just going to get better. We're maybe replacing Cola with Ackerman. but without fail, immediately take a nosedive again. So, like, what are their options? The transfer period's over. It's not like they can just, like, get Imp in here, pull up Deft.
I think this is one of those instances where you just take the fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uzi, I just realized Uzi's a
But,
dick.
okay,
Why would
Or you pick up XQ. Like, you can pick up XQ.
Uzi's not a dick, dude. I would not
There
tolerate
are a
that for
lot
3
of-
seasons
okay.
in a row. All right, pick up another roster, throw him on your back, get in there.
He threw up the biggest middle finger, though. He literally just left at the last possible day. He's
I
like,
know,
"See you
yeah,
later, guys."
it was bad, but
Here's a
We have
super
two-
fun rumor, okay? I'm just gonna drop this. I've heard like one person say it. I have no idea if it has any credibility at all. So pretty much like throwing this out there as something that probably won't happen, but is just like some random thing that someone said. Starhorn Royal Club, Namei.
that won't have the same effect on that team. Namei is like calculated and preserved.
That-
UCI is like the kind of go in and the team just kind of like naturally synergizes with them. I don't know about that.
I think that would be really interesting to see, though. I would love
would.
to see it.
It
I don't
would
think
be
it would
like-
necessarily be successful.
Yeah, it would be the time for Namei to evolve. That would be like his evolution point. Does he like realize, like, oh, okay, I think I can be the extreme, like, crazy carry for this team. I'm not sure. It depends how much like Ackerman really, if he does take the
And
starting.
he's been in that position before where there's been positive energy, terrible solo laners,
All right. Yeah.
terrible solo laners. There was a while where Jay was like a really good jungler, right? But then they lost him too.
Yeah.
But then he just had a really good support.
I remember
But
that.
there was a time where he had a pretty good jungler too. So like similar situation, right? And I
Yeah.
would say that actually Korn and Cola are not that awful. As like JoJo and
Compared to positive energy solo winners, no, that's
Yeah.
like night and day.
Yeah, so like I mean, he's done it before, so this would be like the ultimate Namei test. Can he go back to his roots?
He should like rename
Maybe that's his home, man.
back-
Maybe that's what he likes.
He should rename himself back to Devil and be like the Starhorn Royal Club Devil, like coming
From
back
the
from the.
roots. Okay, but here's the thing that I didn't even like notice. Like, OMG, they figured it out. Like you were talking about, Uzi guy's gonna throw another team on his back, take them to the World Finals. Like, OMG, they found the solution. Like we
We
can
just
never
buy that.
if we just pile on Uzi guy's
You
back.
really just
Meanwhile-
got that? I've been thinking about it. It's just like that's why I've been drawing the Star Wars comparisons when Anakin joins the dark side, and then like Zero's like, no.
But meanwhile, Uzi guy's like taking the ultimate risk. He's like, I thought dragging fucking Corn and Cola across the finish line was hard. I'm fucking taking on OMG. Like these guys have the worst track record for making it into fucking like the World Finals, which theoretically it should have happened twice in a row now. Like
Wow.
Like
OMG.
so this is like one of those like the chicken or the egg dilemma. Is it me?
No way,
Or is
man.
it Royal Club?
Okay.
I mean,
my
come
God.
on. It's going to be.
Star
I mean,
Wars
honestly, it's going to be
Royal Club
hilarious if
makes
Royal
it.
Club makes it to finals again, though. Like seriously.
Oh my god, the biggest like kick in the crotch is like literally like OMG versus Starhorn Royal Club. OMG has like they literally have Uzi.
it's
like,
Chris,
the guy.
man. It's Chris.
And they make it to Game 5 and Starhorn Royal Club wins, and you're like, what? How are we losing at this point? What's happening?
This is some brand collusion shit at this point, man. I'm not buying it anymore.
At that moment, like Game 5, all of the OMG players just like throw their headset on the ground, like we're done, we're leaving this team. This is just the OMG curse. It was never meant to be.
But that brings up the question, like, was OMG's problem that they needed this AD carry? Was that their problem? Do we
No.
think that's their problem? No.
The problem
But I think
what
it
the
makes. I
problems
think it
were
makes their
attached
competition
to it.
easier.
It does.
It's possible, yeah. What
no, no.
Frostgren is bringing up is possible.
Yeah, so the theory is, and kind of the rumor is that there were obviously there were emotional issues in OMG. Specifically, it was constantly said that San wanted, like, a different support. He wasn't happy with Loveling as, like, he pretty much had, like, the best supports in China, like, just, like, rotate through him, and he just wasn't happy with any of them. Like, he didn't like it when Loveling was his support. He wanted to play with Dota 7, which we saw how well that ended up. Like, theoretically, Dota 7 was on the roster because San specifically wanted him. He didn't want anyone else to support him. So if that's the case, get that guy off the fucking team and take Dota 7 with him.
I agree. It wasn't a playstyle thing, but I do think San was the problem on the team. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because
if this is true, then yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of evidence to support it, right? Like that I mean, everyone labels Cloud, but then why didn't Pomelo support him? Like, why is like these players supposedly don't want to play support for OMG right now?
And rumor was that
super
Cloud
tough,
literally said, "I'm not coming back to OMG unless you replace the."
This was cool. This was cool. The rumor.
Oh yeah, cool. Sorry, I said
rumor
Cloud.
is that Cool said he would come back to OMG if they got a new AD carry. That was the rumor.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're like,
Well, that's
Sam
another
or
reason to recruit
Cool-
Easy Eye. I mean, you keep Cool, so you're
That's
essentially you're essentially renting out Cool for another season. Like I think that's worth on
That's
its
like
own.
three birds with one stone. They threw a stone out there. They got Cool back on the team. They have
Ricocheted
Uzi
off
for,
that
like-
bird with the other one in the sky.
But the question
They,
is
like-
that.
Yeah.
But the question is that like would Sans issue be the issue? Because I also feel like OMG for them it's a definitely there's a mental thing too. Like I think they choke. They've choked. They
Oh, yeah.
haven't won. Like they've been the favorite of the LPL regular season for like 3 splits in a row now, and they haven't won titles. Like
Well, if what you're saying
always
is
a
true
bridesmaid, never a
about
bride.
if what you're saying is true about them taking a different strategy and like getting a larger like a back team, maybe a Korean coach, that would be really good. And I think that'll solve that.
and that's why I'm more excited about that. But could it also be like and we can't even say this word in China, but a sports psychologist, these words in China, because they don't really have those.
China's Voldemort.
So, and would this be something where if they were like in a team in the West where they would get a sports psychologist or something? I don't know.
I've been saying this since spring 2013, so I
Get-
really hope
get
they
OMG
eventually
as sports
invest in one,
psychologist.
because that is what they need more than anything. But I still do think that removing San, if this is all true, is probably like kind of taking the problem from the roots and pulling it out instead of just swapping supports, as you were saying. Like, so I don't know. I think it's the second best move they can
San
make.
becomes the support, and he doesn't want to support for anyone but Donos. And he makes UZI hate him so hard.
But let's take a moment and just like back up. We're literally saying that Uzi, a player that has a huge reputation of being like a straight up diva, is like the solution to OMG's emotional problems.
That's
No, I mean, I don't think one solves the other. I just think it's like the biggest move they can make outside of getting a sports psychologist, especially when replacing AD carry means they secure Cool again. If that's the case.
Okay. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Do we have any final statements on OMG and Uzi before we move on to the best part of the show?
I just
My
want to hear
favorite.
more rumors about like Uzi problems in the house.
We're
Uzi's
just gonna
like-
see him. They're gonna be in like Worlds
He's
group
fine.
stage, and you're gonna see Uzi get up from his desk, and he's just like gonna walk over to Leveling after a bad gank and just take his head, just bam on the keyboard.
It's true. Like that's the other thing is that Cool and Leveling as a duo are kind of inconsistent. Like they both need to perform really well for them to do well. So just like he walks over there sitting next to each other and bashes their heads together.
For some reason, the image of that is just fucking perfect. I just don't even
Leveling
know.
and Cool are just gonna have like they're gonna be playing in like turtlenecks to hide the bruises. And
It's awful because I don't actually think that UCI is necessarily like this. But
Season 4 Worlds, he's
Oh.
just fuming at his desk.
This is like
Season
the-
5 Worlds, he's literally storming to the back just to beat up his like.
Because apparently
just to
he's
kick their asses.
matured emotionally, and this goes back to SDYZ because apparently UZI has matured emotionally quite a bit. And I don't think I got, the point about UZI playing mid before the call dropped.
oh my
When you saw him play mid, he actually looked like he would roam, he would gank for all the lanes around him. Like initially he just started 1v1ing and it wasn't working. Like he would win his lane and his team would lose. But then as time progressed, he started ganking other lanes. He started playing with KMI and they would like go across the map and start to prop up these lanes, and they did a little bit better with that. So I think that he has this thought process to be a team player that's in place, and that like rumors of him being a complete diva might be a bit exaggerated. So I don't know. It could be interesting.
It's so much more fun that way, though.
I know, right?
just like taking the smackdown, like they go into the locker room, Uzi just like fucking lays it out on Insec. Everyone wants to imagine this. No,
Yeah,
I just think of him crying at Worlds. And I'm like, aww.
Someone sent
Cutest player ever.
And then he played that Vayne game where he's like, and every time you see him play Vayne, you know things just got real because like he's mad, he wants to solo carry, and he's like going back to his UZI tendencies, and then he just like straight speed. His record on Vayne is actually much worse than his record on like any other AD carry.
His record
actually
on Mission was
hilarious.
like 20-3, like
Yeah,
something
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so that's like but after that he started crying. He had to have his alone moment, and then I think like Chris probably said something to him because I think he was
That's what I'm saying. It's Chris.
But
Chris is going to carry Starhorn
it's
Royal
Chris.
Club.
And Chris is the coach of Royal Club, by the way. He's had
Yeah.
two finals appearances, just like UZI. But
The only coach to do so.
he
Where's his award?
got one. He got the coach award.
I didn't notice that.
Anyway,
That's interesting.
so, and then he brought himself back. He didn't pick Vayne again. He regrouped. We were good to go. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, we're going to talk about the awards. So at the Demacia Cup, this is the best part of the show. At the Demacia Cup, awards were given out for like, think of them as like the People's Choice Awards. People, fan, they got to vote. You got to vote of like who was the best in every single role, who was the best foreign player, and effectively it was like OMG, like UZI, and Zero. I think Insec also got an award. Like, but the point is, no one from EDG got an award.
Yeah.
Nope. And then I heard that there
Haters
was
gonna
like some
hate.
salt for sure.
Okay, Kelsey, take that one away before, and this leads into the fact that we're on our own on this show. We're actually going to do our own awards, and we're going to get some blackjack and hookers, and we're going to do our own fucking 2014 LPL awards. So
Except we have low budget, so Drexen is the hooker.
yeah, Drexen gets to be.
Damn it, not again.
Drexen gets to be the CGI dragon in the middle of the crowd.
Yes, yes, I'm okay with this. Oh my god. Okay, so when we actually release the VOD for the show, we're gonna have to throw like a VOD to that specific instance, just those dragon highlights because those are glorious.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I was rewatching the VODs and I saw that. I literally like almost peed myself. I was laughing so hard.
It's so good.
LCS needs this. Like they put a CGI dragon like in the middle of the crowd shot every time someone took a dragon.
And it like roars and shit too. Anyway,
So good.
It breathes fire.
EDG. Why didn't? Okay, what's the controversy over this? Like, give it to me straight. Like, did EDG even fucking deserve an award?
So either there are two possibilities. One is that the fans just hate them so much, right?
That's what I was rolling with.
that they didn't vote, because there is like, if you go to the Demacia Cup website, which by the way I didn't realize there was even a Demacia Cup website, like an official one, until this week. So
Bro, figure it out. I've been on that
Anyway.
website.
No, but there are like these vote pages, so there was at least some fan vote element for these awards, right? So you can theorize that the fans just like hate Edward Gaming. But the other option is that because of their performance in their poor performance in Worlds, they decided that EDG winning like every single title in China except for in a tournament where they competed, except for two, which is the internal Intel Extreme Masters. Shenzhen, and then recently I believe the NEST they lost to King was like the only tournament they've lost to King. And then they won the Demacia Cup, and they didn't even go to receive their check because supposedly they were upset at not receiving like any awards at the ceremony, that they didn't receive their check. So I think it was just Sancho who received the check, the manager, but so those are the two possibilities, is that people are just so upset with them for like the poor performance at Worlds.
This is an issue that fans are just weighting current performance at Worlds like over domestic performance?
I think
you know what I'm saying?
Definitely a possibility.
Yeah, that's one thing that makes sense. I mean, they already weren't like the most popular team in the world, and for them to fail at Worlds when they're representing China is possibly the strongest team going in at that point, and it's definitely going to be an issue.
Yeah, Worlds did a lot in weighing their pretty much just because of how unsuccessful they were, and even honestly looking at the categories, the only thing that I feel like was very enraging or just like nonsensical was best team being OMG. Everything else you can make a case for, like cool, best mid, AD.
If we're talking
Lucy,
about
like,
World's performance, OMG did not deserve that award.
yeah, OMG was like, why was
You want to
this
talk
even a
about
thing?
disappointing?
Yeah.
I think it was best club. So,
Oh, right,
depending
yeah.
on how you see it as like a team or like a club in terms of their management decision, because obviously people are happy with them for staying all Chinese.
Mm.
But again, still like I feel that when World Elite's throne was cut, they lost like their national Chinese team title. EDG was kind of poised to take that, right? They had two previous World Elite members, right?
Yeah.
They were winning all these titles. Like
I don't think people were happy with the fact that they had two EDG or World Elite members.
Yeah, I know,
though.
but that's the thing. That's part of why people don't like them, right? And the other reason why supposedly they don't like them is they don't like how they play. It's not Chinese enough. No Chinese aggression. Bad.
Bastards.
Okay.
Bad EDG.
Stalling
Yeah.
bastards.
So now that we've kind of talked about the controversy of their awards, now we're gonna get to our own awards because it's close to my bedtime and I gotta head to bed soon. So we're gonna burn through this.
Before you do that though, I just want people to know that there was like a best 4 and 8 award, and that I think that's what went. That's the award Insect got, right?
It's
Yeah.
They mean foreign player, but yeah, it's literally the words that they use literally translates to best foreign aid.
Okay,
Foreign
gotcha.
Or
Okay.
foreign support or outside support, I guess, is literally what it translates to.
Yeah.
So here's the first question that I'm gonna ask you guys, and this one wasn't on the Demacia Cup Awards, but we're gonna put it on this. Name me your guys' best LPL game of the entire year. Just one game, the best one. And I'll go first, and I'll say mine. I think the playoffs where EDG got OMG to surrender to them in the playoffs of the LPL at like 20 minutes. And the reason why I picked that game is because like I love close games, obviously, because they're really exciting, but there was something majestic and beautiful about watching EDG at their highest skill ceiling just completely decimate someone, and finally seeing this team that we like see glimmers of EDG where they just like really show up, and you know that's amazing. That's when they're at their highest peak. That's the Namei. That's the best AD carry in the world. These are the people that we're hyping up. And that game, like that series back to back, because they did it twice. Like the Jinx Nunu Kale comp was like amazing, and that's the game that I would pick. Just seeing the full potential of a team just really like manifest itself.
Oh, my memory is so bad. I've been watching for like over 2 years, and I'm like trying to remember now.
Bro, you only got to take a year. I mean, come on. We had IG
Just this
finally
year?
beat EDG. Yeah, just this year.
Okay.
We had Braum jungle. We had
That was not a good game.
I just want to say, like, on Frostgren's game, like, why it was so interesting to me is there's actually a game in LPL Spring 2013 where OMG forced EDG to surrender at 20 minutes. So, that's pretty interesting.
I think the hype.
Jinx Nunu comp was amazing.
I think one that really got to me was YG's. And maybe it's just because I can't remember their games in the earlier weeks, but YG taking 2-0 on just even one of their games where Tiangun was going really ham against OMG. I think it was in
When
the
he
last
played
week.
Zed and he did like the split push and they took like the inhibitor and then he like came back and
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my
really
vote,
funny.
but now I feel I have to pick another one. Bastard.
I got him.
Young Glory, man. Never forget. Ah, I can't believe that. They 2-0 EDG and they're not even in LPL. This is painful.
and it was amazing how they did it too.
So, did you say YG EDG?
Yeah.
You're not gonna go with the
Vigar.
the Vigar against OMG. That was so good. If you're gonna pick a
Oh.
YG game,
When like Dian Gun dumpstered Cool. Like literally he would set up his teleport
went
every single time.
1-9.
And as soon as the teleport from Twisted Fate appeared, Vigar would just set his stun perfectly on it and just pop it like a balloon. Oh shit. So good.
Oh god. Never forget that. I can't wait for the next LPL actually, just to have more ridiculous games, because I think we'll probably have more ridiculous games. I don't know.
We had Renekton mid. What about the first game where like Insect finally made his debut and he fucking played Rengar, and the first thing that happened is he ran into the enemy jungle and fed first blood.
That was probably my most entertaining game to watch. It was like watching a guy just like run in the wild, and he hasn't survived in the wild before. He's just like trying to find golden places. He's just like a lost puppy. Just oh god, no, I'm gonna die again.
Like the Super Bowl, the Broncos versus Seattle, when like the first snap of the game and Manning drops it, or like the snap goes over his head, like that's literally what happened.
I feel bad because all my most memorable games are like games that are blunders, like Invictus Gaming pulling out like Illusion. Oh my god, he's pulling out the fiddlesticks, and then that game, and then it was so bad, and then they still won.
That was hilarious.
Goes 1-8, wins the game.
I'm just gonna have to go with that game because it was hilarious. Because the hype for his fiddlesticks was so huge, and he just fed relentlessly. Oh my god, it was great.
There's so many good games.
There are. Gosh. I feel like I'm missing a really crucial one from LGD, and it makes me sad.
I'm gonna do some honorable mentions to build up to mine. Okay, so OMG versus Starhorn, the second game they played in the regular season when OMG was winning for like most of the game, and they were like these really sick like Loveling Jarvan ultimates, like oh my god, this is like he's controlling the terrain, they're doing all this
where he like would place the Jarvan ultimates to like completely block off sex. And
then Korn like has one Orianna ultimate. OMG like is like a little bit on the back foot, and I think Starhorn is able to, they didn't even get like an inhib necessarily off that, but their OMG is pushing on their base. Korn has like this amazing Orianna ultimate. They ace OMG. OMG respawns. They go to get Baron, right? And they think it's clear because there's like this one ward in the back that's like kind of bugged.
Oh god, I remember that. They
go for the Baron. Starhorn Royal Club goes again and aces them again in the Baron pit and wins the game. Like that was such a great game to watch.
That was like China Encompass for all Western viewers. Here you go, just a death match in the pit.
That was so good.
Just Korn because like, the play was so good on both, on like OMG all the way to the end, and then Korn just like, whoa.
Korn literally had the I've never seen this happen before. He had the Orianna ball on himself, like, and he was outside the Baron pit by the wall, and he starts the Orianna ultimate animation, and then he flashes into the Baron pit, and the animation goes off and hits them all. It was like the coolest thing, and I'm like, damn.
I was like, whew.
Unless I'm saying this, like, why do I have so many favorite games where OMG gets owned? But
and we didn't even talk about like Uzi Eye's pentakill on fucking Vayne against Invictus Gaming.
Yeah, I mean,
he like dodged.
That was a really.
But another one that I would give an honorable mention to is like in the spring season when IG pulls out the Xerath, and no one was playing Xerath, right? This was just
the
after
Varus Xerath comp?
The Varus Xerath composition, and OMG hadn't lost like a single game in on all of spring until this was like their last set of the first round. So this was week 5. This is the end of week 5 already. OMG hasn't lost a single game to any team almost all the way through. Invictus Gaming comes out with this crazy composition, like Royal plays Pantheon, and we actually OMG played something similar to this in Demacia Cup, except instead of Renekton they used Lysandra, and instead of Varus they used Corki. But they just like do this crazy snipe composition, and leveling until then everyone was banning like LeBlanc against OMG because leveling was playing the support really well, and then he goes like 1-10 or something. It was pretty hilarious. But that game was like really funny.
It was like the start of the over-the-top compositions where people would pick like Xerath and then like Ezreal or Corki so they get their ultimates to the back line. And they would always fight in the jungle and just like snipe people over walls.
Super influential game, I think. And then I want to go with, but for my best game, I'm gonna you did the EDG at their peak. I'm gonna go all the way back to EDG's first ever game is my game of the year, because I feel like the effect that it had on LPL and the way it unfolded, and like we saw EDG, it just encapsulates like their development and how they did things at the very beginning, where they missed like the 2 dragons. Illusion pretty much solos 2 dragons in a row because they have no vision. It's very clear, especially because it's China, it's all about the snowball to win the game. It was very clear to most people that EDG was going to lose this at like 20 minutes. Like FCZF gets one hook onto Zatai in the jungle, and then Ass Thresh, and then everything, and then they ace they ace Invictus Gaming, and then like everything for EDG just flips on, and they become this crazy team that we saw evolve, like with the amazing team fights, the fact that they had like
Samsung
everyone
Blue.
with a great fight. I mean, this was like, for me, this is the game. Like the very first game of LPL, the very first game EDG played, that for me is the game of the year. So.
And the fact that it was against Invictus Gaming, too, like EDG and IG, like EDG has a rivalry with World Elite, but EDG also has a rivalry with Invictus Gaming. I mean, no, not at all.
I mean, it's kind of, it was a rivalry at the time, because at that time, IG had just won, like, IAM, Singapore, and beaten CG Anti-Frost.
Just don't draw attention to it,
they had won Demacia Cup, so EDG wanted to make a team that was, like, that could contest the best team in theory. So, like, and everyone expected this match to be, like, really hype, too, because EDG and IG were supposed to be, like, the best teams in the offseason. Of course, after that, IG loses, like, almost everything and ends up in 6th place at first, but...
Can I mention one game that I really loved? And it's not even an LPL game. It's just like an LSPL game that I really admired and really just
Sir?
it just like really like started my love. It started my love for like 300 and just Vichy as a team. Before I wouldn't say they were bastardized, but now they're all posh. They're all Korean
300 wrecked us, by the way. Just like absolutely, he's amazing. Continue.
Yeah. Like Vichy Stan, I think one game was Vichy Stan versus Wings of Aurora. And this really showed the strengths between both teams. And Wings of Aurora was taking control of the game through Jarvan, like just like their entire rotation. And of course, like at this point, I'm trying to remember. I think Sins was on Kog'Maw, and Dream, who was on Wings of Aurora, was on Tristana. And there's just this entire protection comp, of course, because this is where the meta was at this point, which is very sad. But it was so good, simply because like 300 and Sins just took that team on their back and just showed an exposed Dream as like such a subpar AD carry. Because there were times where like Dream was just like, okay, come on, kite back. No, okay, he's getting destroyed. Like he would just not position correctly, and you just see like Sins and 300 just like soloing, like I wouldn't say soloing, but like duoing the entire team 2v5. It was like, come on, man. Do you like at this point? I was like, I love this bottom lane. Just please implant this bottom lane in other in other teams. Like screw the rest of this team. Like I don't even
just take this guy and put him on OG.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that game so much.
I always love asking people what their favorite games. And like obviously like this section of the conversation will kind of like people will be like, what the fuck are they talking about? Because obviously if you haven't watched LPL, like you have no idea what we're talking about. But I almost think it's like still important because I think it kind of shows like why we love LPL and why we spend like why I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning in Shanghai on a fucking talk show talking about Koreans exporting into China. Like these games are incredibly, I don't know. LPL had some amazing games. I think it's the most. I think it's the best region. I think it's the most exciting region.
Raw fun to watch. Yeah, I believe
it's literally the most entertaining region.
And I want to go with, to wrap up like both the OMG discussion and the games discussion. Braum Jungle. Let's go.
Braum Jungle was
game wasn't good though, man. Like okay, the pick was good, but the game was shit.
It was really fun to watch because like the creativity and the Thresh Braum synergy was really entertaining.
Yeah.
And I want to say that it was also like, I think it was either the first or maybe Wei Xiao had won a Kog'Maw game before. I think that it was also like the first time Kog'Maw had won a game in LPL Summer 2014, and San was the carry there. So like this was a comp that was created around like propping up Kog'Maw with like the Thresh Braum synergy and the crazy like death cages that they created around him. So with the box and the stand behind me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to our blackjack and hookers. Okay. This one is far easier. So, best games of LPL? Okay, best player of each role. So give me your team, the best player. And let's start with Drexen.
Okay, so are we just doing native Chinese, or are we doing
No,
anyone
the best
within the
players
region?
that participated in the 2014 LPL splits.
Okay. Well, going top. I don't know. I don't really feel like. Do I have to justify these picks? Because I don't know. I just feel like going so far ahead of everybody else. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
Leveling jungle.
Basically, suddenly.
So
we have a...
Cool mid, I guess.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, okay, cool mid.
ADC?
Okay, if we're encompassing the whole split, Namei, ADC, and leveling support. Good job, leveling. You win 2 awards.
Wow.
Okay, there we go.
Give this guy 2 awards.
Razgo. Oh, yeah, Razgo.
Okay. Yeah, going top. I feel like that's an easy one. Insect Jungle, because I think like his ability. I want to like justify this one because his ability when the team is behind, because God knows how many times Starhorn Royal Club is behind in a match, he will just like carry that. I wouldn't like carry the team fights that get them into the game because he's just fearless. He will always, without hesitation, start a fight, and it's always kind of scary. It really is. Like when someone who's like really just kind of like beaten down, just like struggling, just like still throwing punches. You're like, please, come on, stop. But yeah, he's a really strong jungler. Insect there, way less in the mid lane.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just really high.
Rookie of the year.
80 carry, Namei, and support FCCF.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Kelsey.
So here's the thing for this award thing is that we talk about like the best players of the year, but a lot of these awards went out to players who didn't play that role in the spring, right? Mm-hmm. So that I think is really interesting. Like Zero got the support on the show, like, and he didn't play support in spring, and Loveling didn't play jungle in spring, and Cool didn't play mid in spring. So for me, I have to kind of weigh like whose performance in summer was so good that they justify getting that award for the entire year. So for the most part, I kind of went with like except for jungle because I feel like jungle is really hard. There weren't a lot of like super good spring junglers. Like you would have to give it to Clear Love by default. So, but in top going, I think this is the only one where there's like zero debate.
Well, I could choose Cola. Get the fuck out.
Okay.
Continue.
Choose Cola if you want, I guess. I mean, I guess you could almost argue Koro just because if you're just... No, you can't really.
You said go going, continue.
Go going.
Jungle for
okay.
you.
Jungle, I can't give it to Clear Love because if we're talking about him as a jungler...
You just said.
No, I said you would have to, if you were only basing it on the entire year, you would have to give it to Clear Love. And I think that in this case, you can weigh a performance of a summer-only jungle over Clear Love and say that this guy was a better
Jarvan.
Because I think Clear Love is a great team fighter, but when we talk about jungling, not so much. And I would give it to Loveling. Probably for the same reason that Raz gave it to Insect, because I think Insect, like, going in regardless of whether they're behind was actually worse and made them go more behind. So that's my perception of Insect doing that.
I also think Loveling was insanely good every time he had to play internationally, so that's another reason I gave him that award.
And they also, like, Insect was also, like, Loveling, they were both pretty inconsistent junglers, I would say. Like, I think that one's, like, pretty hard, but I would give it to Loveling just by a little bit, just because I feel like he was the guy who kind of, like, him and Going did so much for that team as a duo in terms of, like, shot calling and everything else. Mid lane, I'm gonna give you.
Damn it, you stole mine.
I'm giving it to you because I think in this case you have to give it to the mid laner who was good all year, because I feel like you was good enough all year to justify it. And, like, he was the reason that his team won most of their spring games. Like, his Ziggs play alone was the reason why his team won those spring games. And his team fighting is amazing. Like, his laning is pretty good. I always harp on him so much because of he doesn't roam, but for what his team needed to win in China, he did that very well. So there's that. 80 carry. I'm gonna throw in the Wei Xiao. I know. All of you hate me. But I think that Wei Xiao just played so well in LPL. And yeah, it's a big thing. I have to justify that they didn't, like, they made playoffs in spring and then they didn't win they went to 4th place, and I think in 5th place that. But just like every time you saw him play, being a self-sufficient AD carry, we kind of downplay an AD carry's strengths a little bit when they have a lot of people to peel for them, right? That's something that's a definite concern. And when you talk
Wisha
about
had no one.
Wisha, like, literally dived his own towers. Like, he saw a kill, he could calculate the damage of, like, everyone. He knew his team was probably not going to do anything, and he could dive his own towers, like, waste all of his cooldowns, and that guy was dead. And then Wisha was, like, moving on with his life. He initiated his own fights on Twitch, like...
Yeah.
This guy could initiate fights. This guy could position really well on Kog'Maw for having 0 peel. He did the Trinity Force Eye Edge Corki because he was like, I am literally my only damage.
Okay, support.
And he took all the gold, and that was successful for a while, but obviously not towards the end. And support, I have to, again, give it to PYL because I feel like he was good enough all year to...
Get the fuck out of my list, yo.
To outweigh, like, Zero and Cloud, like, showing up in the summer. And then you would have to go... His head-to-head, I guess, is against FCCF, and I figure that's, like, pretty close, too. But PYL, he's a shot caller. He pretty much controlled his team. He raised up XQ, like, if it's true. He kind of mentored XQ and made him, like, the great AD carry that we thought he was by the end of the split. Yeah, I think PYL just does so much for his team. He's like literally the Chinese Mata, so except his vision control isn't good, and I'm not saying he's literally Mata and Mata is better. There's my disclaimer. Thank you. Happy chat. Okay. We're good. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. I'd have to see PYL on a better, more successful team before I give him that award. So I guess it's kind of hard to gauge him when he's on LGD.
So if you use the all-year criteria, would you give it to FCZF? Because you gave it to Loveling, like you went all the way back to spring with that.
Yeah, well, because I kind of just remembered his performances just stemming from 2013 too, and like I don't know. I still feel like it was the best support that China's seen. Personally, I don't know. Call me crazy, but just judging by the year, I guess it's hard to say.
I'm gonna going Loveling you for pretty much the reasons that everyone stated. I'm actually gonna go San here instead of Namei, even though I love Namei. And the reason why I'm going to go San is I think we've seen pretty much every single dimension from San possible, as well as a good Worlds performance. Like, it was completely tied with Namei until Namei decided to just, like, shit the bed at Worlds. San, like, stepped up. He performed actually really, really well. And at the very beginning of the split, San played the hard carry role where he was, like, you know, the Uzi eye that his team needed. San then transitioned back into the team fight style AD carry. You know, he's never Uzi eye, he's never Namei, he's never Wei Xiao, but he's all of those three things, like jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
And I think he was exactly what OMG needed pretty much at like every single time, except when Dota 7 got involved. If the rumors are true, then San loses his award, Namei rips the cup from his hands and like beats it down with him. But like majority, like the reason why I'm putting San above Namei here is he showed up at Worlds and Namei didn't. And that's a you have to show up in competition,
and
unfortunately.
I gave it to the guy who didn't even make playoffs.
Yeah. Thanks, Hero.
Yeah, but we're talking about, I don't know. I'm not going to object that opinion. I just, like, I don't know. I don't think you can go just off of making Worlds, because then Uzi has to be considered too, I think. If we're weighing Worlds so highly.
I think he's saying, like, multi-dimensional. Like, San, again, more dimensions from San than anyone else this year. And I think that's, like, a fair statement.
It is. And I've been, like, one of the people who've been criticizing him, but I've honestly, like, I don't know. I have a respect for
like, we always say, like, OMG's only weakness is San, and the fact that San is their only weakness kind of speaks to how strong of a team they are, because that guy's not bad by any means.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously now their weakness was Dota 7, but this was before. And then for support, I'm also going to do PYL. I thought about kitties. I had a glimmer of hope.
Kitties.
Kitties would be, like, as bad as my wish.
Okay, let's do best team.
Do we want to do best club or best team, or just, like, best team?
Best team. This isn't a popularity contest. Who was the best?
I mean,
because this is actually, there's a lot of dynamic...
Is anyone not going to say
No. there's a lot of dynamic conversation for here. Like, I honestly think that we'll probably all say the same thing, but you have to think, like, OMG, the most dominant team that pretty much wins every single split. They're consistently the best, but they fail to show up in competition. You have EDG, completely smashes playoffs every single time, wins every single domestic tournament. They're the elite when it shows, like, when the pressure is on, they show up, except Worlds. And then you have Starhorn Royal Club, sucks the entire year, but then gets to Worlds and is like, what's up, bitches? And, like, redefine, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have 3 really compelling arguments here.
It's fair.
And then you could, like, choose LGD because you're like, fuck it, I like Wayless.
Yeah, that is true. They all have their own merits. Based on my own criteria for what makes a team a good team, I'd have to go with Edward Gaming just because they won the most domestic playoffs, even if they did really bad at Worlds. But I guess you could definitely make a case for the other two just because under certain circumstances that makes sense that they were dominant. But then it's like dominance over one. For me, it's like I can't weigh dominance over regular season and dominance over Worlds on top of dominance over like every freaking playoffs domestically. But I'd say it's really close between EDG and OMG, which is very confusing to people that only watch China through Worlds.
Okay, Raz.
All right. So I feel like I'm gonna get a flag for this, but come on, man. Like here, I'm gonna say
Young Glory, isn't it?
Please say Invictus Gaming.
It's Invictus, yeah, Invictus Gaming.
What? I don't even know how that makes sense. Like, you have to have some... Okay, this is something you have to justify. You can't just, like, throw it out there.
Most entertaining team. Because, okay, obviously... Okay, you know what? I'll be honest, because the boring answer, which is a lot more sensical, if you want to put logic in this, would be EDG.
Why would we put logic in our rankings on a China Talk show, right? I mean, that's absurd.
Which team is the best when we can vote for the team?
And besides, I think Young Glory is more entertaining than Invictus Gaming, so that's a thing.
Raz is
It's close, though.
living up
He was
to the reputation of being biased.
In one split, okay, so we gotta go Invictus. Come on.
Good job!
The kids...
Crisis just made Diamond celebrate.
Yeah!
Isn't this like the equivalent of saying like Dignitas is the best team in North America?
No, but to be fair, like ZZ Tai and Illusion have like always been extremely entertaining in what they've done, and they've always been like they've never been afraid to bring out certain picks that do work. Maybe not to the teams.
Did he die?
He was so... His opinion was so...
Oh my god.
Am I alive?
Your cam is dead,
Skype
I think.
voted you off the show.
Oh my god.
That opinion.
I think you have some DDoSers that are very angry with you from China right now.
I just got destroyed. All right. I will move away from Invictus Gaming.
He says,
Will that bring your cam back?
I'm trying.
Raz, I'm gonna let you finish, but EDG. Okay.
Kelsey. EDG.
It comes back, they're like, that's what I thought, bitch. So you're just a spinning circle, but you'll get there. You're trying.
Soon.
So Drexel said, made a good point about OMG, you know, as someone who likes...
Good job, how?
As someone who likes OMG, I'm kind of like, that's a really interesting point there. I should know. I have to go with Edward Gaming because not only were they, I think they influenced a lot of play in LPL this year. They were an extremely influential team in terms of how they played. They made it so that people had to work a lot more on their late game vision. I think that usually we talk about how OMG is the team that elevates the play of the region in terms of forcing people to kind of like live up to the OMG standard. I feel like this year it had to be EDG. So like EDG made everyone team fight harder in the late game. They made like Baron control less of a throw fest. I think this year eventually. They realized that they had to out jungle Clearlove, which isn't like super duper hard all the time, but it definitely, I think that out leveled up the jungle play also. Like there's a reason why people started importing and like improving junglers. It's just like, oh, we can beat OMG if we can snowball using our jungler. I mean,
it made them be proactive about their jungle pathing because they couldn't just let a stagnant game go because EDG would win.
Yeah, so I think EDG. Like, for that reason, I have to give it to Edward Gaming. That, and they won everything, and I'm the biggest Aaron fanboy in the world, so here we go.
No, I agree. I am also going to go for EDG, so it's an unanimous. And just to extend kind of on Kelsey's point, like EDG created the late game for China. A lot of the time, it was just about kind of the early game snowball and riding that pressure wave. And EDG like completely upset that they're not a typical Chinese aggressive team. Okay, so we got our best team, EDG. The last question right now is the best foreign player that is currently playing in the last year, so none of like the Dandy Mata bullshit. This is what? Insec, Zero, Ninja, Khan,
Are we only going with LPL or LSPL?
This is Chinese.
Oh, excuse me, Axine. I'm trying to like remember who replaced him. Axine and LPL.
Mickey God.
Mickey God.
Oh God. Definitely Mickey God, man.
Mickey God, come on. Can we throw Dade in there just because he just...
Well, like, who is that guy?
Did I get everyone, or did I miss any Koreans?
Did we miss... we
Yongsu
and Insec.
Oh,
I said Zero and Insec. Yongsu.
all praise Yongsu.
Okay, I think I got everyone.
Braz, if you vote for Yongsu.
Your cam's gonna go off again. And next time you're not coming back.
Okay, Drexen.
Ninja. Did we do Ninja? We didn't.
Yes,
say
we got
Ninja.
Ninja.
Yeah, she said
I
Ninja.
got Ninja. Okay,
God.
best foreign player. God. Best foreign player, Drexen. Go.
I want this to be a harder question than my brain's letting it be, but I'm just gonna have to go with Zero. Because he shaped up a lot from his time in Korea, and he instantly filled the support role in the exact way that Uzi needed it for his team to succeed. So, I mean, you could kind of make an argument for Insect, but I don't think so. I think Zero definitely wins this one.
The carry of Starhorn Royal Cup. Go, Kelsey.
Yeah, and I have to go with Zero too, because I think that he was. If we're talking about like the moms of the team, we have Zero, and I give like U was the reason why EDG was winning when they were finding their sea legs, and I think that Zero is the reason Starhorn Royal Club was winning when they were finding their sea legs, and he was instantly super good as soon as he went to China because he turned out to be really good at saving people from 1v5ing. So his ultimate, he's not the best support, I don't think, by necessarily a huge means, but he's the best at doing what his team needs him to do in his role in that category. So,
yeah.
Okay, Raz, don't fuck this up.
I will not. Okay, I'm gonna go for Insect simply because although I do believe that Zero was a very, very, very talented and core member of the Starhorn Royal Club roster, I think what really puts Insect ahead was his role. His role on the team was that he had, of course, since he was a jungler, in my opinion, probably one of the best junglers in the region, the ability to dictate which lane got going. And he did, like, in the beginning, of course, he was always going to be able to just gank bottom lane, get Uzi going, and he was going to be able to carry them through. When they realized that wasn't working, or that was just not an option for that team, if they wanted to succeed on a world level, he went up and got Corn the resources. He went up and got Cola the resources. Now, Corn didn't exactly need the help, but of course, if he was on Fizz, the snowball is always appreciated. Like, it was always really nice to get going. And Cola, in my opinion, of course, he performed, but it was mostly, in my opinion, in part due to Insect putting a lot of attention on that lane. So, I think Insect was pretty much the core factor of why that team was pretty damn good in the early. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a fair point. I'm gonna go with Zero. I think he was the true carrier of Starhorn Royal Club.
I'm sorry, I didn't push talk there. Caught myself. But yeah, I was gonna say I think we can at least agree that Starhorn did the best job as an organization in harboring Korean talent, just because they have both the first and second place. You can argue that both are definitely the best Korean import and the runner-up. Either way you put them. So,
are we not going to do MVP though? Because
No.
you said this was the last one.
MVP. If we do it quickly, why not? I don't know. Well, we don't have to.
Okay,
what do you mean by MVP? Just the best player that was most useful for his team?
Player.
Okay.
Most valuable player is the award.
Okay, very quickly. Not a ton.
Just because of how many times he's hard carried, I'm going to have to go with Cool here. Just because I have to give him MVP based on the fact that he won games by himself that otherwise should have been unwinnable, and I don't think I can give that title to another player over the course of the year.
I would go UZI.
Okay.
Just for sole MVP. Sole MVP?
He can do it. Uzi dragged 2 bodies over the finish line at Worlds. Kelsey,
fine, you can go. It's fine. Okay, I have to go with you for the same reason I gave him best mid laner. So.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I can't give best mid laner to a mid laner that doesn't move. I'm sorry.
It's so hard, but it's like for the entire year. Like otherwise, obviously, I would give it to Cool, but I feel like you played well enough through the entire year to justify it based on he played through.
I'm going to give it to Loveling, and I'm going to give it to Loveling because I think for every single position, like when he played support this year, he was on point. When he played on jungle, like when Cool does well, Loveling's doing well. Like when Cool decided to go like 20-0 on Yasuo and like break the GPM record for 610 gold per minute, it was because Loveling ganked his lane on Lee Sin, like the Lee Sin Yasuo synergy. And I think like the most versatile, the most dynamic, like in all of the greatest victories, Loveling has been a part of it.
She loves you, Loveling.
I love you, Loveling.
That's a fair case.
For clear love, then you know that you are loved.
Oh my god, Kelsey, I wanted to take a picture of our mid laner and show it to you because he looks exactly like Loveling.
That's crazy.
It's bizarre.
It's
I know.
actually Loveling because he has like 8 names.
It's actually Loveling. I was sitting across from him. I was like, "You look like Loveling. Has everyone ever told you that?" He's like, "No, Loveling's handsome." I was like, "Oh."
Okay.
If you look at Loveling's Weibo account, you'll see how handsome he is.
He's a very handsome guy. Okay, that's it. We need shoutouts now. Jackson, go.
All right, yeah. Shout out to Esports Heaven and all the lovely panelists once again. And also shout outs to LPLEN, where we casted the Demacia Cup Grand Finals. Again, apologies to everyone that had issues with the quality. There's not much we could do about it, but heading into 2015, we should be seeing a quality increase to HD, assuming everything goes well. Assuming everything goes well. Yeah, assuming everything goes well.
Okay, Raz.
Okay, shout out to Esportspedia.
Good job, dude. Good job, man.
Site.
Psych.
And yeah, I'm just gonna keep it simple so I don't actually fuck it up.
You're already making it harder than it needs to be. But okay, go.
Okay. Shout out to LPLEN. Shout out to Chris and Pastry Time, who did a very excellent job covering the Demacia Cup Finals when I did not have my usual charming Frostgrin and Pyrotechnics doing their fantastic things and evolving. Shout out to Twitch and those people who help out with LPLEN. Shout out to Riot Games for making a beautiful game, and shout out to On Gamers.
All esports paid to say that? I'm just kidding. She's like, yes, fat check after the show. No, okay. So, we good? We want to do the wave thing?
Shout out to the lovely chat. Twitch chat, you're amazing. Keep being you, Kappa.
Don't say it. Don't do that. Don't say that to Twitch chat. That's not how we want our future generation to be.
He says it or not, so you might as well get some brownie.
Wait, did Frosty shoutouts? I don't even know.
Shoutouts to... I don't even know.
RMU?
Shoutouts to Crisis.
Shout out to Crisis for hitting Diamond on his new account.
Yeah. We got them all their new accounts, and even our Chinese players started over on their new accounts, and there's a race. Whoever gets first to Challenger gets a little prize. Oh. And so far he is in the lead, and he has requalified himself on his new account for Diamond. So, shout out to Crisis.
We done, boys?
We done.
And girls? Okay.
Done.
We done.
All right. See ya.